Hello, and welcome to the Mr. 50mm YouTube channel. We're going to try something a little different for this video. You may have noticed that in the past little while, I've been on a DIY rampage. You might have also possibly noticed that throughout the life of this channel, I tended to do a lot of repairs on my own, took some risks when it came to buying and fixing camera stuff, that kind of thing. Today, I want to discuss some of that. First though, I do want to say, I don't intend to push anyone into taking excess risk or spending money on a risk they don't feel comfortable taking. If DIYing, repairing things doesn't interest you, or the risk of doing it seems like it's too great for the loss of money or loss of time or both, click away. There's no free lunch, as they say. However, sometimes discounts can be had for those who know where to look or how to look for said discounts. What am I actually getting at though? Well, the point of this video is I want to discuss some of the reasons why looking for broken camera gear and fixing it up or attempting to fix it up can be rewarding. And not just for your wallet, but for learning new things, developing skills, and hopefully having fun along the way. But also sometimes getting used to the idea that even if you try something, things may not work out, and that's totally fine. Before I bought the GH2, I was doing what one does on the evenings, trawling Facebook Marketplace for something neat. And I came across the listing for this camera. The description was pretty short. Basically, it said, it's broken, 4 parts, will not turn on. The asking price was 40 Canadian buckaroos, or, I don't know, $3 US, and it came with the 14 to 42 kit lens and a charger. So I thought initially, well, for 40 Canuck dollars, that's worth it for just the kit lens alone. So not really going to be at a loss if the GH2 is a total wash. I then messaged the person and arranged a pickup. When I got to the seller's meeting location, they again stated that the camera is broken and explained again that it would not power up even though the battery was charged, and asked if I was sure that I wanted the camera. And I replied, yeah, it's not an issue with me. I was going to try to fix it anyways. So I gave them the money and they wished me some luck. Fast forward a tiny bit and I try to plop the battery in the GH2, and sure enough, it didn't power up. So I thought, well, the battery might actually be dead. So I put it on the charger, and that's when I just went away for around 30 minutes, and I just assumed that the battery was in the charger. I saw an LED go on and started blinking, and I thought things were good to go. So I came back 30 minutes later, took the battery out, assuming I'd have a partial charge, and realized, nope, the camera would still not turn on. No surprise, the seller did say it's unable to power up with a charged battery. But that's when I actually thought, is the charge indicator actually what I think it is? Is blinking indications of charging? And I actually wasn't sure, so I looked up the GH2 manual, and it turns out no. Blinking does not mean charging. Charging on the GH2 battery charger is a solid LED. And when it's done charging, the LED is off. Blinking is actually an indication that there is an issue with the battery. That's when it hit me. The issue with the camera was likely not the GH2, but of course that battery that wasn't charging properly. So I measured the voltage across the battery, and it came out very low, something like 5 volts or so. Either way, the Panasonic charger was not happy and would not charge it. So I actually connected it to my universal charger, set it to lithium ion, and surprise, surprise, my universal charger was slowly able to bring the voltage back to 8.4 when charging, and then I was able to actually test the camera. Now, of course, at this point, this pack is actually probably a bit damaged since it dropped below the threshold where the Panasonic battery charger would even bother charging it. So this is not a great pack, but it was a pack that was functioning enough that when I then put it back in the GH2, powered it on, the GH2 sprang to life. And so at the least, I verified that GH2 was not the problem, the pack was the problem. So what did I do? I spent an extra 20 buckaroos for a third-party battery, and now I have a GH2. The other battery will be sent to battery heaven, otherwise known as the battery recycling drop-off location nearby my home. So if you're watching, ma'am, the camera is fixed. It is functioning. Thank you very much. Now, I do admit this GH2 is still not perfect, but the main problem was that it wouldn't power up. I'll walk you through some of the other things that are up with this camera. You might have noticed that right here, there's a blue thingy there. That's because the original pop-up flash switch broke. So I quickly modeled and glued in a new one, or modeled, printed, and glued in a new one. The other thing is this LCD hinge. It is a bit floppy, and this cover is a bit damaged. So at the moment, I've glued that cover down, and I'm just gonna live with the flop. Apparently, this should be also a not too terrible repair. I should be able to actually take the back cover off, along with a couple other things, and tighten up the hinge that's discussing it. Now that we're done the intro and some backstory, let's discuss. You're probably not alone. So this is especially true when it comes to older cameras, film era cameras, that kind of thing. You will find that there are pretty large communities of people and resources that will help you find faults, address them. Some groups will even help kind of walk you through the process. And I know, Facebook groups at this point are mostly filled with AI slop and just vile content. But in that ocean of poop, you still have groups that exist to help and learn. And that's kind of nice. And it's nice to be a part of a group that isn't full of slop and poop. So yeah, that's always neat. And it's almost guaranteed that if you buy a camera that it has an issue, someone has probably seen it before. Even if it's not the exact same model, there's probably someone that's written about it, made a video about it, might have actually straight up found a solution for it. So there are pretty large amounts of resources out there. You just gotta know where to look. For those of you who don't know, iFixit doesn't just cover phones and computers. There are a significant amount of entries that are camera-based, a treasure trove of info. Now here's an example I have of this. A real long time ago, in like 2012 or so, I found an ad for a 300D, the original Rebel. It was 20 Canadian dollars. The owner had said to me that the mirror had broken, and they even knew what was wrong with it. They knew that it could be fixed with time, tools, and some ability to follow instructions. They just said that was not them. So I went to go pick it up. We had a chat, and they told me just search the issue. It was common. There are a lot of people that posted guides. Sure enough, when I got home, I saw there are countless guides from people who wrote detailed posts about how to fix the issue using a paperclip. In fact, there still exists blogs up now that have guides written all those years ago, like this one that I'm going to link to in the description below. Additionally, for those of you who aren't aware, there is a blog run by a Richard Ha, and they provide very comprehensive guides on lens repair. And I would recommend anyone check it out because it's awesome. So I'll link to that down in the description below if you did want to have a look. There are some issues that are trivially easy to address. There are actually more times than I can remember where I got items for really, really cheap, and the issues turned out to be ridiculously trivial. Even after just a couple minutes of investigation were applied, I was able to get these cameras back up and running. For example, I would sometimes see cameras described as just dead and inoperable with nothing else to go on it, and I would go pick it up because it was so ridiculously cheap. I figured, why not? And once I had it open, I could see there was just a mildly corroded terminal, and I can grab a Q-tip, a little bit of vinegar. 5 minutes later, I've cleaned it up enough that it's come back to life. Or in the case of all the GF3s that I bought, I got those very cheap because they were locked to Japanese. And it only took uploading a slightly modified firmware, which took a very small amount of time to make, and an even smaller amount of time to upload on the GF3 to make it English and solve my problem with it. And you already heard the story about the GH2, and this is actually one that has kind of happened a couple times. I think this might be the third or fourth time where a camera has been purchased dead and it turned out to be a bad battery. And if you think about it, that actually makes a lot of sense for older cameras. Cameras, even mirrorless cameras like this, are pretty robust. And DSLRs are even more robust. A lot of them had shutter ratings of like 100,000 clickies or more. That's a lot of shots. So chances are, with the DSLR or mirrorless camera being pretty robust, that they might not have a huge problem. But you know what has always sucked? Batteries. They tend to have a shelf life. Even unopened new lithium-ion packs that are old enough might be non-functional or at a reduced capacity right out the gate. Another fun non-issue that sometimes gets put down for a reason for selling an item cheap was screen damage. And I know, that sounds bad, but if you remember, Sony cameras from something like 2008 all the way up to whenever the a7 III was released all had an anti-reflective coating on the surface of the screen. And that coating scratched if you thought about it hard enough, and it would make the display look like crap. And if you're like me and would rather have a display that doesn't look like crap, then you just want to remove whatever is left of the anti-reflective material. And this could be done very, very easily, as it turns out. Basically, if you get yourself some polishing cloth, some automotive polish or PEEK or really any other polishing compound, you can literally rub one out and you'll have a nice clear display. That's how I got my A99 for very cheap, and it's also one of the reasons why my A7 Mark II was marked down to a fairly small number, and I was able to pick it up for pretty well peanuts. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times when damaged screen really does mean something like a large gouge in the rear LCD or something like that. However, usually, because the LCD is at the back of the camera, and if it's an old enough fixed display, the LCD replacement is actually not super hard, so that's also something that I would also keep an eyeball out for. Especially if it's an older camera that at some point was hugely popular, like the 5D Mark II. You could probably still find LCD panels for that to, do work and replace if that was a problem that came up. things don't always go well. Sometimes you're just out of your depth, and that's fine. One thing to keep in mind is that there is just a chance that you're not going to be able to fix whatever is wrong with the thing you bought. The project may be a wash. And I want to reiterate again that if you're not comfortable with the idea of either putting in time or money or other resources into something that might not work out, don't do it. It's not for everyone. If you've seen my unboxing videos, you've seen that there have been a few cameras that didn't work. For example, behind me, there is the Canon Micro Compact. That's dead. I couldn't figure this one out. This thing, at a glance, I thought might be a straightforward repair. It turned out it was anything but. Between stripping screws, breaking plastic clips, it was a mess. The way that it's constructed blew my mind in a terrible way. The electronics are all placed on flat flexes that are spread out through the camera, and that immediately made my heart sink with quite a bit of heavy despair. And it's the same with the Olympus. It's somewhere over here. Couldn't figure that one out either. So they now sit as display pieces, and I don't think I'll be getting them to work anytime soon. There are just times where I end up having to accept that I have not yet the skills to progress any further. But is that the worst thing in the world? For me, these cameras over here, it wasn't a massive loss, it wasn't a massive expense, and I still learned something taking them apart. So it was, while not what I wanted, it wasn't all for nothing. Another one was a little bit of a long time ago. It was maybe a decade ago. I had thought that I could handle disassembling a broken Polaroid 600 SE lens. The leaf shutter was not having a good time leafing. This was not to be remedied by me. I began by unscrewing the lens elements and pulling things apart. And when I finally got to the shutter, I don't remember exactly what happened, but things got messy and the leaf shutter bits kind of did not make it back together. So yeah, not all of the adventures end in even a lesson, other than possibly a lesson in humility. But that's all I got for this video. I just wanted to talk about the subject of repair. But before I go, I do want to ask, who has attempted some repairs like this in the past? Who has bought broken gear? And were you successful in unbreaking it? If so, what was the thing you needed to do to revive it? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe a super thanks if you're into that. Till next time, bye.